call the formal session of Virginia Beach City Council to order. The first order of business is the invocation of Reverend Kim Hodges, pastor of the Lynn Haven Colony Congregational Church, the United Church of Christ. Welcome. After the invocation, if everybody will remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please pray with me as you are led. Holy God, we read in Christian scripture that we are to love our neighbors. So help us to love our neighbors in Virginia Beach, our Jewish neighbor, our Muslim neighbor, our atheist neighbor. Help us in our daily actions to show generosity and commitment to our gay neighbor, our immigrant neighbor, our military neighbor, our homeless neighbor. Guide our elected officials in making decisions for this city. Encourage their hearts and renew their passion for just governing of Virginia Beach. Help them to find the best ways to love our neighbors affected by flooding, our neighbors without transportation, our neighbors with small businesses, our neighbors without homes, our neighbors who are young, and our neighbors who are wise in years. Holy One, bless the work that is before this city council. May every decision faced, every phone call made, every email responded to be done with generosity of spirit, and turn us again, reorient our hearts towards your will. Collectively, we know you by many names, and I pray this in the name of Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, unto the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Pastor. May I have a motion to certify the closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Vote is open.
By a vote of 10 to 0, you have certified the closed session to be in accordance with a motion to recess.
The informal and formal session minutes are not ready yet, so we will not be voting on them tonight. We have the pleasure of having our former mayor and his wife Bev with us this evening, and also Delegate Barry Knight, who is going to be here to read a proclamation for us. Mayor. Mayor Sessoms, if you...
You got a full delegation.
Look at all these people that came out for you, Will. Wow. Not bad for a has-been.
Rosemary.
Roy, rip me all that.
No, just kidding.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, we, the Virginia Beach delegation to the General Assembly, thank you for this opportunity. We recognize that you are the government closest to the citizens, and we thank you for your service. And to quote a good friend of mine, Virginia Beach is the greatest city in the world. Mr. Mayor, allow me to introduce my colleagues. Senator Bill DeSteff, who was sat behind there at the dais for a few years. Delegate Glenn Davis, also was one of your colleagues for many years. Delegate Kelly Fowler, Delegate Cheryl Turpin, Delegate Joe Lindsay, and Delegate Jason Miares. We represent the Virginia Beach delegation. And Mr. Mayor, if we could get Mr. Mayor to come forward.
I like it on this side.
Understandable.
We miss you, Will.
We were only allowed one full-size page on this resolution, but we could have filled at least 3 pages with his accomplishments. Oh, I used to didn't have to do this. Small print. This is House Resolution number 647 from the General Assembly of Virginia, agreed to May the 30th, 2018. This was an official vote from the General Assembly of Virginia. Whereas William D. Sessoms, Jr. stepped down as mayor of Virginia Beach on April 30th, 2018, after more than 15 years of dedicated service and leadership as a city council member, vice mayor, and mayor, and whereas Will grew up in Virginia Beach, where he attended First Colonial High School after graduating from Virginia Commonwealth University. He pursued a career in banking, becoming Senior Vice President of Wachovia and President of Town Bank. And whereas desirous to be of further service to the community, Will Sessoms ran for and was elected to an at-large seat on the Virginia Beach City Council in 1988. He was subsequently elected by his fellow council members to serve as vice mayor between 1992 and 2002. And whereas Will was elected mayor of Virginia Beach in 2008 and later won election to 2 additional terms, during his tenure, he worked to create jobs, improve the environment, and strengthen communities throughout Virginia Beach. And whereas Will Sessoms has served as a director of the Virginia Beach Neptune Festival, Virginia Beach Volunteer Rescue Squad Foundation, Virginia Marine Science Museum, Virginia Beach Central Business District Association, and Virginia Beach Vision, among many others. Whereas, after his well-earned retirement from public office, Will Sessoms will continue to live in Virginia Beach and seek new opportunities to serve the community. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Delegates that Will D. Sessoms, Jr. hereby be commended for his more than 15 years of service to the residents of Virginia Beach, and be it resolved further that the clerk of the House of Delegates prepare a copy of this resolution for presentation to Will D. Sessoms, Jr. as an expression of the House of Delegates' admiration for his contributions to the community and best wishes in further endeavors.
If I could just be very brief.
3 minutes.
I really want to,
Rocket docket.
paybacks are tough, and I know they're coming. I know they're coming.
Rocket docket.
But without a doubt, I want to thank the delegation for doing this. But I do want to reflect a minute or two that, you know, the first thing I got to thank are the citizens of Virginia Beach for allowing me this opportunity to serve the city for these many years and allow me to come back for quite a few times, and for that I'm most grateful. I want to thank my wife Bev, my children, and now my grandchildren for putting up with this stuff all these years. It takes a big toll. Everyone here knows that it takes a toll on the family. I want to thank every city employee in the city of Virginia Beach for the great job they do each and every day, you know, tirelessly doing what they can to make this city, you know, a great, great city. I want to thank the entire city council. I want to thank the entire delegation that is currently serving today, because you all allow me to work with both the council and the delegation. And as you look around here, a lot of wonderful things got accomplished. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you all for allowing me to have that privilege to make things happen. And finally, to those that serve today, both at council and in Richmond, I respectfully ask that you all continue to work together to make sure our city continues to be the greatest city in the world. Thank you very much.
Is Michael Kirschman here? Michael is the Director of Parks and Recreation, and this is Parks and Recreation Month. And so I would like to read this proclamation in regards to that. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of the city of Virginia Beach, with 287 parks and park facilities, 7 community recreation centers, 7,069 acres of parkland and open space, and whereas 61% of the community resides within a half-mile walk to a park, and whereas parks and recreation programs are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our community, ensuring the health of all citizens, programming active and passive activities for citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of our community. And whereas Parks and Recreation is an integral part of our council's vision, contributes to the achievement of the goals in the sustainability plan, and supports the urban forest management plan. And whereas Parks and Recreation programs provide therapeutic recreation and inclusion services for individuals with cognitive or physical needs, and whereas Parks and Recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas parks and natural areas improve water quality, assist with stormwater and sea level rise, improve the quality of the air we breathe, and produce habitat for wildlife. And whereas parks and natural areas and open space provides a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the Parks and Recreation Department is a CAPRA accredited agency. Now therefore, I, Louis R. Jones, Mayor of the City of Virginia Beach, do hereby proclaim July 2018 Parks and Recreation Month in Virginia Beach, and I encourage all citizens, city members, and city organizations to join me in supporting our parks and recreation programs by visiting a community recreation center, park, or natural area. In witness whereof, I have hereby set my hand and caused the official seal, City of Virginia Beach, to be affixed this 10th day of July 2018. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'll be very brief. Mayor Jones, City Council members, Manager Hanson, it's a pleasure to be here this evening. If you didn't know it, since 1985, this nation has observed July as Parks and Recreation Month. This year, to celebrate, we're offering quite a few things. One of them is family fun nights at many of the recreation centers. So these are free events. Whole family can come, members, non-members, anybody in the public, enjoy the pool, the fitness center, arts and crafts, you name it, they can come out. The next one is this Friday at Bow Creek. There's one or two more each week until the end of the month. We also had a tremendous July 4th at Mount Trashmore. Tens of thousands of people enjoyed it there. So really, I would just really encourage all of our residents and visitors to get out this month, enjoy everything we have to offer in our incredible park system, all of our natural areas and rec centers, and reap the benefits of their park system. Thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Definitely take that. Hey, Mike, is your family in town now?
They're here.
All right, very good. Michael, thank you.
All right. Next item of business is the consent agenda, and I'll call upon the Vice Mayor to read the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we get started on item I2, ordinance to authorize and adopt a policy regarding speakers at council meetings. That's consent for withdrawal by the council. Are there speakers here for that, Ms. Barnes?
We had 3 speakers sign up, Ms. Diana Howard, Mr. Dean, and Ms. Messner,
Do y'all want to be heard, or since it's going to be withdrawn?
on the speaker policy.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing.
It was just going to be withdrawn.
Okay, I just wanted to commend Mayor Louis Jones, because after every public hearing that he ever held, he always at the end asked anybody who hadn't signed up if they would like to speak. And I'd like to say, we are the standard, we should not lower our standards.
Another kudo for our mayor.
Good job. Okay, so we're going to, then council, with your consent for withdrawal. Okay, Mr. Mayor, under the ordinances, resolutions, the consent agenda, I move for adoption. Item 1, resolution to support initiatives and opportunities regarding making the city a livable community for all ages. Item 2, ordinance to authorize and adopt a revised city council policy regarding time limits for speakers at city council meeting, and that's consent for withdrawal. Item I3, resolution to support the city's 2018 applications for the Virginia Department of Transportation Smart Scale Program for FY 2023-2024 and FY 2024-25 regarding improvement projects for General Booth Oceana Boulevard intersection, General Booth Boulevard, Laskin Road Phase 3, and First Colonial Road. Item I4, resolution to endorse the Interstate 264 Town Center Pembroke signs and authorize reimbursement of costs regarding sign modification. Item 5, resolution to authorize a memorandum of understanding MOU with Preservation Virginia for the purchase of 2 shuttle buses regarding Cape Henry Lighthouse and First Landing monuments. Item 8, ordinance to appropriate $195,000 from Town Center Special Service District Revenue Fund to the Town Center Special Service District operating budget regarding contractual services, repair, and maintenance. Item 9, ordinance to accept and appropriate $15,000 from the Virginia Department of Emergency Management to the Office of Emergency Management's operating budget regarding medically friendly shelter and authorize an in-kind grant match. And I need to open public hearing for planning.
Call a public hearing on planning.
Under planning, item J1, Enoch Baptist Church and Volunteers of America Incorporated for modification of conditions regarding a group home at 5677 Herbert Moore Road, District 2, Kempsville. Item J2, St. Luke Catholic Church and Catholic Diocese of Richmond for modification of conditions regarding religious use at 2304 Salem Road in the Princess Anne District. Item J4, JMB Design Incorporated and Village Shops Associates LLC for conditional use permit regarding a tattoo parlor at 3157 Virginia Beach Boulevard in the Beach District. Item 5, The Lash CEO LLC and Siphon Development Company Incorporated for a conditional use permit regarding a tattoo parlor at 1060 Lynn Haven Parkway in the Rose Hall District. Item 6, Nina and William Gilbert for conditional use permit regarding a residential kennel at 5716 Blackwater Road in the Princess Anne District. Item J7, Holly Properties LLC and GOPA 3 LLC for conditional use permit regarding automobile repair garage at 621st Colonial Road in the Beach District, and that's for a consent for withdrawal. So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded. The vote is open.
Ms. Abbott, may I have your vote?
Aye, sorry.
Go ahead and close it. By a vote of 10-0, you have approved the consent agenda as read by the Vice Mayor.
Before we move on to hear the other items, I would like to remind everyone that the City Council speaker policy that allows certain representatives of groups to speak for 10 minutes applies only to planning items and items where a public hearing is required by state law. As to all other items on the agenda, each speaker, whether speaking individually or on behalf of a group, will have 3 minutes to speak. Also, when speakers are called on each item, the clerk will call for those individuals who have signed up to speak. After those who have signed up to speak have spoken, the chair will ask if there are any other persons who wish to speak on the item at hand. Those speakers will be allowed to speak and will be asked to give their names, address, and telephone number for the clerk to record before they speak. The first item is the resolution to authorize the issuance of residential care facility revenue and refunding bonds not to exceed $85 million by the Virginia Beach Development Authority, Ray Westminster, Canterbury on Chesapeake Bay. Madam Clerk?
We have one speaker, Barbara Messner, which I have not seen her tonight. Barbara Messner.
Doesn't appear that Ms. Bessner is here.
Doesn't appear she's
so
here.
Move for approval?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded for approval. Any further discussion? If not, the vote is open.
By a vote of 10-0, you've approved the resolution to authorize the issuance of the bonds.
I will then now go to planning item,
That's item 7.
or actually ordinance 7, which is an ordinance to establish CIP Ray Flood, Capital Improvement Program Ray Flood, Mitigation Assistance Grant Program 3, and appropriate $2,914,976 from the Virginia Department of Emergency Management. Madam Clerk.
Again, we only had one speaker, and that was Barbara Messner.
Ms. Messner come in yet?
Barbara Messner? Husband.
Move its adoption.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded for adoption. Any discussion? If not, the vote.
By a vote of 10-0, you have approved the ordinance.
Now go to item 10, which is ordinance and resolution, Ray Sports Center. 10A, transfer $3.5 million from Dome Site Entertainment Venue Capital Improvement Program to Central Beach and Convention District's Parking, CIP, and B, authorize city manager to execute a comprehensive agreement. Are there any to speak?
Yes, there are several. Will Driscoll is the first. And after Mr. Driscoll will be Diana Burke.
Good evening, Council. My name is Will Driscoll, and I am the Director of Marketing and Sales for the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. And I can say without question that the Hall of Fame unequivocally supports the proposed Sports Center. The Hall sees this facility as a very large step in the evolution of Virginia Beach's sports brand, a brand that the Hall of Fame is now a part of as we have made our home here in Virginia Beach. The work that Nancy Hellman and the CVB have put into this project is nothing short of amazing, and we know that once this facility is completed, it will be nothing short of spectacular. The Hall of Fame clearly sees the benefits of a venue such as this, and we look forward to the day that the ribbon is cut to open the Sports Center. The best part about working in sports is that we deal with most of America's hobby. And what I mean by that is you don't have to be the most avid sports fan of a professional or college sports team to be considered a sports fan. You may not ever watch a sporting event on TV or go to one of these events in person, but if you have a child or family member that participates in sports and is passionate about it, then you are a sports fan because you have a connection. And that is what this facility will be targeting. And that is what the benefit is to the city as a whole. It's not just the athletes that are coming here, it's their families, their friends, their coaches, support staff, and of course, sports fans in general. Depending on the event, there could even be additional media exposure for the city of Virginia Beach. As a result, many new faces will be introduced to the city and the region because of this facility, and that is reason enough to push forward. The Hall of Fame can't wait to see hundreds, if not thousands, of competitors descending upon Virginia Beach for 2, 3, 4, 5 days at a time for any number of events that this facility could host. The Hall supports the Sports Center and hopes that the City Council shares in its enthusiasm. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
The next speaker is Diana Burke, and after Ms. Burke will be Ken Cord.
Good evening. Turn this down a little bit. Honorable Mayor Jones, and that's so fun to say. I have to say that. I had to work on that today. And City Council members, City Manager Dave Hansen, we are so thrilled to be here today. It's a happy day for tourism. Many of us are wearing I Support Virginia Beach Sports Center because it's a great day for residents, it's a great day for businesses, and I can share with you, I represent 80 hotels and about 150 associate members, and I have to, before I go on, Russell Lyon sends his regrets. He was in a car accident on the way here. He's okay, but he's unable to speak on behalf of the VBHA. So I wanted to make sure I got that out. But one thing that he wanted to express to everyone was this is the absolute perfect use of the TIP fund. Back in the day when the fund was created, it was meant for this type of a purpose. And when I go up and speak to many of the delegates that were here today, and we speak on various different issues, we are the envy of every other city in the Commonwealth because we have this designated revenue fund. So again, what a perfect use. It helps the residents, it helps the businesses, and I'm going to share with you just a couple reasons of why I feel like it helps both those demographics. This venue is a necessity. It insulates the tourism industry from inclement weather and cancellations, and I look at Rosemary Wilson and John Earn for this. We just had our AAC meeting, which many of you know what that is. That's our Advertising Advisory Council meeting, and in April, we were forecasted to have great visitation in April, and unfortunately, lots of rain and inclement weather came, and everyone canceled. So if you look at the city coffers for tourism in April, I think you'll see that unfortunately, we were hurt by that. So this particular indoor center will insulate us from future events like that. In addition, the 68-plus additional events that will come to us by year 5, it's just going to yield a tremendous amount of business for the tourism industry and the stakeholders, allowing for more year-round visitation and employment opportunities. It continues to support our family-friendly brand as we shout out tournications to all the tournaments that are coming our way. A tournication, of course, is when one of the tournaments come and they extend their stay and turn it into a vacation. For the residents, it's the increased visitation to the center will yield lots of revenue that goes right to the general fund. So we're paying for this with the tip dollars, but it's going to yield loads of wonderful revenue back to the city, which you can utilize for all the necessities. It allows travel teams, which many of them are here, to host teams and engage more fully, and the quality of life is greatly improved. And I have to share with you, behind me are quite a few of the tourism individuals who, July is our busiest month, so I have to applaud them for being here today. So if anyone is in support of the center, would you please stand at this time? Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Ken Cord. And after Mr. Cord is Christina Chastain.
Tonight, $3.5 million is going to be transferred from Dome Site Entertainment Venue SIP to Central Beach and Convention District Parking SIP. The Dome Site project was going to be host for the Wave Park and would be a big money maker so by its stakeholders. So why are y'all transferring the $3.5 million to this sports center project? Well, let me guess. Because the sports center project is going to be a real money maker, not the Wave Park. Let's talk about the cost of the shiny new toy. On June 15th this year, the Virginia Pilot wrote an article detailing the new sports center cost went from $40 million to $68 million. That's an additional $28 million and nearly a 20% increase in less than 6 weeks. Any commenter understands that there are unforeseen costs in some change orders that would most likely add up to a few extra $1 million. A few, not 28. It wasn't until I was reminded recently where the $68 million number is coming from. Does everybody remember when or how the City Council approved and appropriated funds to the arena project? It was $46.52 million for on-site improvements, $21.15 for off-site improvements. Together, those two numbers equal 67.67, around about $68 million. Sounds and smells an awful lot of bait and switch. Speaking of funny numbers, on page 3 of your agenda book, under the sports center, y'all openly admit that dollars have to be taken from one end of the pool, dumped into the other end of the pool, the very same one. That's why I'm appalled to pay Peter. If this is Common Core math, it's ridiculous enough. Y'all are going to give Hanson the green light to execute the plan to build this boondoggle. The same city manager who will threaten bodily harm toward Aubrey Lane. The same city manager who openly bragged about having stockpiles of cash in a public meeting at the convention center. The same public city manager who threw a temper tantrum because he didn't get the tax increases he was foaming at the mouth for in this year's budget. In summary, the people reject this idea of the sports center as we have rejected the arena project. How is it that the city struggles beyond belief to come up with money to fix and repair basic needs of the city, including flooding issues, and its pittance when they do? However, the money for this project and others seems to materialize with the snap of the fingers. I beg y'all to transfer this money so that the people can grow even more hopping mad and vote y'all out of the office.
The next speaker is Christina Chastain. And after Ms. Chastain is Paul Merritt.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Jones, members of council, and city staff. I'm here today as the chairwoman of the Resort Advisory Commission to reiterate our support for the Sports Center. In May 2017, the Resort Advisory Commission unanimously supported the Sports Center project. The Resort Advisory Commission is comprised of business owners, civic and community leaders, and design professionals. It is our job to advise on any projects related to the resort area. The RAC believes this project will be a wonderful, unique, and progressive enhancement to our oceanfront and assist in bringing more families and sports-related tourism in both the resort season and the shoulder seasons. Virginia Beach has the distinct advantage of having the Atlantic Ocean to supplement a sports event, positioning us far above other locations. The Resort Advisory Commission unanimously supports this endeavor. Thank you.
Paul Merritt, and after Mr. Merritt is Elizabeth Bowman.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Jones and members of the City Council. I am Paul Merritt, President of Virginia Beach Vision, and I am speaking in support of the city's efforts to grow our sports tourism market with the development of the sports complex. Virginia Beach Vision, representing 120 businesses and community leaders, is dedicated to advancing initiatives necessary to the city of Virginia Beach's future economic growth, financial sustainability, and quality of life. With tourism being one of the city's three greatest economic engines and the long-held desire to be established as a year-round resort, family-friendly visitors destination, the proposed addition of the sports complex fits perfectly in line with the city's objectives. A regional economic development report recently placed Hampton Roads dead last among all 35 similarly sized metropolitan areas for job growth. Our region is underperforming and falling, falling either further behind peer and competitor regions. Our household income is lower today than it was 20 years ago. The subpar economic performance will continue without the political leadership to change the trajectory. Business location and job growth are competitive endeavors, and Virginia Beach must take and make wise investments in infrastructure that will place it among the most desired locations. Sports tourism is a growing industry, generating $11.4 billion in 2017. Already, the city's convention center is hosting competitive sporting events in spaces not designed for this type of activity. The development of a sports complex inclusive of an indoor track will allow Virginia Beach to attract major track and field championships, regional and statewide competitions, and local league play year-round. A clean industry that draws families and competitors to our hotels, restaurants, and retail outlets. It infuses spending from outside our region. By its 5th year in operation, it is projected that sports complex will generate an additional $4.2 million in local taxes, filling 135,000 room nights in our local hotels. It is the type of public investment this city must make if we are to reverse our current economic trajectory. On behalf of Virginia Beach Vision, thank you very much.
Elizabeth Bowman. After Ms. Bowman will be Joyce Smith.
Good evening, Mayor Jones, council members. I'm going to be really short and sweet tonight because I'm convinced that you guys have heard all there is to hear about this particular project, in favor of or not in favor of. I'd like to take this time to thank a couple of people that have been working diligently on the project. One is Councilman Earn, which we wouldn't be here having this conversation if John hadn't pushed it through for many years in supporting sports marketing. The other is Mr. Hanson and Ron Williams. You guys have been really, really diligent in working this, and thank you, Dave, for that sports center. Last but not least, the unsung hero, Nancy Hellman and her crew, which are sitting out there. If it weren't for these guys, we wouldn't have a sports program in Virginia Beach. And they have done an unbelievable job in promoting tourism and the sports arena. You know, this project, it's a proven formula for Virginia Beach. It already works. We know that. It's not a shot in the dark. It's a real thing. It benefits the Virginia Beach residents. It benefits our visitors, and it benefits the tourism industry. And that's a win-win-win as far as we see it from the Restaurant Association. Our association has 300 and something members. We are fully and unanimously supportive of all of this, and we would appreciate your support tonight, and I will thank you in advance for it. Thanks.
Joyce Smith. And after Mrs. Smith will be David Rhodes.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Jones and City Council members. I'm Joyce Smith, and as treasurer of the National Shuffleboard Association and secretary of the International Shuffleboard Association, I was very excited to hear about the Sports Center. I hope that I can convince you to include shuffleboard courts in that center. Shuffleboard is thought to be a sport for seniors, but actually it's a sport for all ages, young and old, even those with disabilities, and it's a great activity for families. It's not just a game where you push a puck down the court. It involves a lot of strategy. And while you can learn the basics of the game in a short period of time, the strategy can be developed over years. Shuffleboard is making a resurgence with a younger generation. There's a club in St. Petersburg, Florida, who is down to 20 members. By offering shuffling on Friday nights, they were able to form leagues to compete with each other for the championship, and their membership has risen to over 1,500. We encourage the clubs to get public schools involved, teaching the game and holding tournaments where students can compete with each other. We've also been successful in involving the disabled American veterans. We find it gives them something to look forward to, and they are actually very competitive. There are currently 25 states that are members of the National Shuffleboard Association who actively support the sport. National tournaments bring people from all over the country to participate. 12 years ago, no one in Europe played shuffleboard. Today, there are many countries who are members of the International Shuffleboard Association: Canada, Germany, Russia, the UK, Brazil, Australia, Austria, just to name a few. About 6 years ago, the world champion was an 18-year-old boy from Germany. 2 years ago, it was won by a 76-year-old woman from the U.S., which shows that the participants are pretty much on a level plane. These tournaments draw people from all over the world to stay in your hotels, eat at your restaurants, and shop at your stores. They also bring a lot of publicity in the form of newspaper, television, and social media coverage to the city. Players then go back to their own states and to their own countries, and they tell their families and their friends about the fabulous Virginia Beach. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Rhodes. And after Mr. Rhodes will be Jim Davis.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. I'm speaking this evening as a lifelong citizen of Virginia Beach who continues to enjoy a 33-year career working in public school athletic administration. I'm also a proponent of the construction of the proposed sports center, and I would like to highlight the merits of including an indoor track within the complex for high school track athletes in Virginia Beach. Currently, 11 Beach District high schools field boys and girls indoor track teams, where the season annually begins in mid-November and concludes at the Virginia High School League state meet in late February. However, Virginia Beach indoor track teams have to hold their competitive meets in Hampton because there is no such existing indoor track facility in Southside Hampton Roads. As you can imagine, traveling to Hampton for every Beach District competition is certainly less than convenient. And here are some of the disadvantages Virginia Beach students experience because of the lack of a facility closer to home. First is missed class time by track athletes as a result of having to leave school early on meet dates to make it to Hampton for a 1:30 p.m. start time. Another, each school can only participate in 3 Beach District meets during the regular season to limit the number of times students will have to travel to Hampton. This reduces the number of competition opportunities for Virginia Beach students. Meets are longer due to the large number of schools competing, once again a result of reducing each school's amount of travel time to Hampton. And one of the obvious disadvantages is diminished spectator support. Indoor track is the only sport in the Beach District where its athletes, and there are between 600 and 700 of them, have to leave the city in order to compete. And not only do they have to leave the city, they have to leave Southside Hampton Roads. An indoor track in Virginia Beach would definitely be utilized for Beach District competitions and certainly for a number of school practices. But it would be very attractive also to our neighboring school divisions whose indoor track teams also must cross the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel for their competitions. Several regional competitive meets would very likely be scheduled at the Sports Center. It could also be the site of the state high school indoor track meet for years to come, bringing student athletes from all across the Commonwealth to Virginia Beach and its hotels and restaurants in the heart of winter. With its proposed seating capacity and multi-purpose functionality, the indoor track facility at the Virginia Beach Sports Center can convert to a venue to host state championships and other sports as well. The Sports Center facility is sure to be a jewel, and it can definitely have a major positive impact on the experiences of all Virginia Beach high school students who participate in indoor track. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Jim Davis. After Mr. Davis will be David Nygaard.
Mr. Mayor, council member, Mr. Hanson. I'm Jim Davis, lifetime resident of Prince Anne County in Virginia Beach, and I've spent many a day down the oceanfront and enjoyed every moment of it along Atlantic Avenue. But I'm here tonight to ask and implore you not to vote for or against this project, but to postpone it. I don't feel the case has been made sufficiently for everybody to rally behind this. On surface, it sounds like a great deal, but it seems like an awful lot of money and an awful lot of chances to be taking. How will it compete against other centers in this area? How will it compete against the Bill Williams Center over in Hampton, or the volleyball center up in Richmond, or the other sports centers either in Raleigh or in Northern Virginia? All these areas have these type of centers. What is going to make Virginia Beach different? The oceanfront is there, but in January and February, very few people are going to care about the ocean. We've got to figure out how we're going to compete against these other centers, and is it going to be worthwhile? The amount of money that we're talking about with this is incredible. If you look at the other projects too that are being included and talked about for the Beach District and from the TIP fund, it seems like everything that comes up from the beach project, we'll pay for that through the TIP fund. That TIP fund cannot possibly be that big. We need to take a break, stop, take a break, and look at all these projects together as one, and come together with a 5 or 10 year plan or whatever it takes to build these projects if they're all worthwhile. And on surface, many of them seem that way, but it's just not the time to do this at this point. We need to stop, take a break, think about what we're doing, and come up with a long-term plan on how we're going to fix tourism in Virginia Beach. These centers would be great down there, and everybody would be talking about them. Well, all it's going to take is another drive-by shooting, and that's what's going to be talked about throughout the area and throughout the region, not the sports center. We've got to stop and look and think about what we're doing down there before we continue on. Make sure that we're in the right area. Take some time, step back and look. There's very little trust and faith from many of the people in the city to the city council, and I think many of the city council feel the same way about some of us. That needs to be changed. We need to come together as a city, support these projects. One way or the other, people in Kentsville need a chance to support them, as well as the people in the oceanfront, people in Bayside. We need to come together as a city to support these projects. Case needs to be made for these, and it needs to be made publicly, not behind the closed doors. And my time is up, but I just want to implore you to take a moment, take a break from these projects and think seriously about postponing them. Thank you.
David Nygaard. And after Mr. Nygaard will be Holly Godfrey.
Thank you for giving me a few minutes. I'm David Nygaard, and if anything I've learned from being a small business owner over the last 30 years is that there's always another solution to the problem if we can just be creative. And before making any major decision like this, it's important to listen to every person impacted and to consider all stakeholders. Now, putting a sports center or any other tourist attraction near the ocean front is without question worthy of every consideration, every conversation, but I beg your pardon, and I hope you'll let me say that we're missing some conversations. We've had an awful lot of conversations about developments at the ocean front, but not a word tonight or any other night on record about public safety issues haunting us right down the street and threatening our tourists and tourism if left unchecked. Now, I know it sounds crazy to talk about missing persons, sex trafficking, human trafficking when it comes to major developments like this. It looks bad for tourism. It looks bad for business. And it's bad for the city. But it's even worse if you're part of Bellamy Gamboa's family waiting for answers. And it's bad when you work retail at the ocean front and you're scared to walk down 24th Street between Pacific and Birdneck, or as they call it down there, Rape Alley. And we keep talking about major developments that will increase the foot traffic at our ocean front exponentially. And it's okay to ignore it until you face the reality that Virginia is number 15 in regards to sex trafficking. And last month, we just arrested 3 for sex trafficking suspects in Virginia Beach. So at the risk of running out of time, I'll cut my remarks short. I hope you'll put forth an earnest effort to listen before making moves. Tourism and development is so important that we need to consider the public safety component that goes with it. Because right now, I think we're only having half the conversation. Thanks.
Holly Godfrey. And after Ms. Godfrey will be Ryan Olditch.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is Holly Godfrey, and I serve as one of our Virginia Beach High School's one of our 11 student activity coordinators. I am the student activity coordinator at First Colonial High School. One of my bosses this evening, David Rhodes, has already done a wonderful presentation to you and explained to you the benefits that could be had from the indoor track facility and how it could benefit our public school students. But as the student activity coordinator at First Colonial High School, I want to give you some of those numbers. We average anywhere from 30 to 40 young ladies and 30 to 40 young men on that team for teams combined of 60 to 80. This is my 25th year in Virginia Beach City Public Schools as an activity coordinator, so over the years we're talking a lot of students. In order to get them to Hampton High School in time for those track meets and to avoid potential traffic in the tunnel, they're leaving at 10, 11 o'clock in the morning for a 3 p.m. track meet. They're getting home at the earliest 9 p.m. and they average between a 10 and 11 p.m. return back to the city of Virginia Beach on a school night. Those meets are on a Wednesday night. I'd like to point out we already have a wonderful working relationship with our Virginia Beach rec centers where all our swimmers and divers both practice and hold their meets. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility to understand that this same type of beneficial relationship could be had between the sports center and the school system. Lastly, as a parent of 2 elementary aged children, it literally makes me giddy, not just as a parent, but as a high school athletic director, to think that this type of facility will be available when my children are in high school, and hopefully when my children are participating in indoor track and field. Thank you all for your time tonight.
Ryan Olditch. And then Robert Pizzini.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Oldak, and I'm speaking on behalf of my support for the Virginia Beach Sports Center. Thank you, Mayor Jones, Vice Mayor Wood, and the rest of the City Council for allowing me this opportunity to show my support for this subject. To be concise, I've come up with just 3 points that kind of illustrate my support for the Virginia Beach Sports Center. Number 1, active lifestyle. For as long as I can remember, I've had a passion for physical activity, recreation, and being active. I have been health conscious and have tried to maintain a proper work, life, and play balance since I understood what that all meant. And where I grew up, we had a complex very similar to this, and I cannot underestimate how much of an impact it had on how I view an active lifestyle today. This sports center provides that outlet for many future generations to come. Number 2, sports are a part of life and always will be. This point was kind of touched on a little earlier, but just to reiterate, Whether a coach, participant, spectator, or family member that's just there to show support, everyone has a connection to sports, and again, this facility provides provides a place where all walks of life can go to support this common use. And for those who have more of an appreciation than others, the opportunity to bring out-of-town guests, along with the possibility of, say, NCAA tournaments and events, to our home, I mean, what more can you ask for? Number 3, to engage the oceanfront. I've been to the oceanfront in mid-December, and needless to say, at times it can seem a little discouraging. We can all agree that our peak season is only a couple of months long, and our main tourism destination loses that attraction in the winter months. With that lack of tourism, obviously brings a lack of revenue. However, introducing a year-round revenue generator not only helps draw or attract attention, but it also retains business, and in time will help revitalize that entertainment district that has undeniable potential. I strongly urge the city to move forward with this project based on the basic upgrades it brings to our well-being, to our area's sports and recreation opportunities, and to our year-round revenue catalysts that attract a multitude of demographics from both near and far, and both current and future. Thank you for your time and your service.
Robert Pizzini. And then Diana Howard.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Hanson, members of council. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'll be brief. My name is Bob Pizzini, and I own and operate Fly Indoor Skydiving down at the oceanfront. So I'm going to speak from the perspective of a small business owner, the owner of a family-friendly small business, as a parent of two 13-year-olds, a boy and a girl, who are very athletic, and as a coach. I coach youth hockey. Unfortunately, we're not talking about an ice rink at this time, but I'll give you the coach's perspective. Number one, as a small business owner of a family-friendly venue at the oceanfront, I welcome the opportunity to create a venue that's going to bring families to Virginia Beach, as has been previously mentioned. The growth of youth sports and the family participation is significant, and again, I can speak to that from various perspectives. Number two, as a coach of travel hockey, when we select venues to travel to, we consider the city, we consider the surroundings, we consider what other things we can do with our kids while we're there. The vacation aspect that was mentioned previously is a consideration when we select a destination, and I think Virginia Beach has a lot to offer in that capacity. Also, as the venue grows, this venue could potentially crowd out, or athletic events could potentially crowd out other things that are less desirable, such as Beach Week, for example. And then from the parent perspective, we want to inspire our children. And if this venue is built and this venue hosts these large-scale events as intended, kids will be inspired. Our local children will participate, they'll attend as spectators, but they'll be inspired. And we will develop a city of kids who have a new venue, a new thing other than electronics and other things that kids do to participate in. It gives them something to rally around and be proud of. I thank you for your time.
Diana Howard, and after Ms. Howard will be Michael Mock.
Good evening, everybody. While there may be a market for sports, I wonder how big that market is, since there is no private developer wanting to, go into this market on their own, and how much competition we're giving to the existing field house. Also, there was the study that we did when it was $40 million. We had an estimated 21,000 increase in hotel rooms. We currently have 2.2 million hotel rooms,
filled in a year, and this was only going to increase it by 21,000. That was less than 1%, right? So it just seemed like not a good investment. We're going to invest $40 million and get $30 million in revenue in 10 years. Now it's $68 million. That's, and it's going to add 12,500 more rooms, right? So that comes to 33,865 more rooms. So now we're up to 1.5%. But there was no financial study on that to see how long it was going to take the TIP fund to pay for that and how much revenue we're going to get. So I wonder if we're going to get that financial information coming. And the TIP fund, I'm glad the TIP fund is paying for it, but it's not all coming from the Dollar Hotel room rate. It's also coming from the rest of the TIP fund, the meal tax, the amusement tax that all of us pay, right? The amusement tax, 100% of that goes into the TIP fund, right? So every time I go to the theater, I play golf, which I don't, but if I did, right? Or bowl, or, you know, go to the amphitheater or something, right? I'm paying for that. So the TIP fund should be realigned so that it is just coming from tourism and not from the rest of us. And they're going to be audited, but not until next year. So maybe we can like postpone it till after we audit the TIP fund to see how we're paying for that. So that's all I had to say. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Michael Mock, and then Bruce Williams.
Hello, Mayor Jones, Vice Mayor Wood, Council, City Manager Hanson. My name is Michael Mach, Vice President of the Atlantic Avenue Association. Our support for the Sports Center is unanimous, and we believe that the Sports Center is one of the best ideas put forth for tourism in quite a while. The Sports Center is one of the few projects that had almost unanimous support, not just from us, but most resort stakeholders. Your support for the proposed Sports Center would reaffirm the fact that our city is actively working to support tourism and make Virginia Beach a year-round family-friendly destination, which is beneficial for everyone. Thank you for your time.
Bruce Williams. And after Mr. Williams will be Craig Doran.
Mayor Jones, Vice Mayor Wood,
Welcome.
esteemed council. I stand to rise to support of the Sports Center. I had the honor of several years ago spending time on the Sports Grants Committee for the CVB. And in our deliberations of the different sports packages that would come to us, we always took into account, when we were funding it with city money, what the room nights looked like. In fact, we caught some heat on some events because they didn't have the required room nights to generate the kind of revenue that we were looking for people to bring to our city. This project does that. It meets the objective of a 12-month city. It provides an entertainment opportunity for people who want to see sports. It provides an opportunity for parents. I was an AAU parent. It brought me to Charlotte and other places in North Carolina. Well, AAU parents have to travel. And I'm seeing things like cheerleaders and volleyball and all that type of thing. Possibly even a couple of Olympic trials. We'll have the venue for that. And that, in my field, marketing, if you get that kind of exposure of your location in that kind of a sports venue, that's worth money, and that's worth awareness to us. So I speak as a citizen of Bayside, who doesn't live on the beach, that this would be a project worth my tax money to put into. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. As a vice president of 200 Plus Men, Hampton Roads League Committee of 200 Plus Men, who asked you to, and you have begun a disparity study on purchases. And it's our expectation as this project is built, the MEB and others will be including women and minority-owned firms in its construction and in its operation. And with that, I thank you very much. I hope you will vote for the project.
Craig Doran. And after Mr. Doran will be Mike Maskell.
Welcome.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Craig Doran. I'm here to speak to you on behalf of being a parent as well as a local coach. I'll be entering my 20th season at Princess Anne High School as a girls volleyball coach. and recently took over as an executive director of a brand new volleyball club called ECVC. So with me, I have Brooke Cunningham, Bailey Cowan, two rising stars of ECVC. And first, as a parent, I'd like to, we're in favor of the sportsplex, by the way, in case you're wondering. Sports plays such a major role in the impact of the lives of our children. I'm sure it's crafted a lot of us in this room today. But the travel costs for these children, the parents, is incredible. It's a ton of money. And now I know firsthand. I have 3 children of my own. All 3 of them are playing multi-sports, and they're all on travel teams. The worst thing in the world is a parent that can't afford to see their child play. They don't get an opportunity to go to the games. And here we have an opportunity to bring a sportsplex to our city. And we're talking about the greatest city in the world. And we got to keep an edge. Like, this is the way we stay on top of it. We don't want to lose this opportunity to have an edge over our competitors in other cities. Nothing better than bringing outsiders in and to show them what we're made of. And then think about the opportunities that these young ladies are going to have, and gentlemen, to have their family members attend their sporting events, to let their siblings watch them play, their friends play. Nothing motivates other children to play sports than watching sports. And this is a great opportunity to do so. Right now, to travel, we're going to Chicago in January. I mean, you've been to Chicago in January? We go to Arizona in July. It's 112 degrees. We don't even have a chance to bond with our family members that are out there. What a great place for families to come and create everlasting memories at a great sporting event. And the complex is going to be amazing. The way you're building it, my son is a rising senior at Princess Anne High School. I haven't seen any of his indoor meets yet in track and field. Why? Because they travel out to Hampton. There's no way I can leave work, get to Hampton in time to even watch my son play. Being here in Virginia Beach for having a track would be incredible. To bring the volleyball courts into here, and just so everyone knows, there's 60,000 volleyball clubs in this country. It's the fastest growing female sport out there. There's tons of opportunity, and what a better way to bring them into here. So, with that being said, I see a red light coming on. I think my time is up, but what a great opportunity for us. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Mike Maskell, and then Holly Martyr.
Welcome.
Good evening. It is important that the city make good investments in order to remain competitive into the future. So let's unpack a little bit whether or not this one is a good investment or if we even still know. The original piece of analytical evidence, and from what I can tell, still is the main piece of actual numerical analysis in favor of this project that originally got us started, was the Victus study, which made a good case for the project. But it also estimated the cost would be between $17.5 million and $30.6 million. And it estimated that the city tax revenue generated as a result of the project over 30 years to be about $30 million. Now the cost is $68 million. With the cost tripled like this, how can anyone say with a straight face that the favorable analysis of the Victus study still applies? We need a new study taking into account the clearly very different numbers before we move forward. Meanwhile, we have a 12-year backlog on our stormwater maintenance, and I've heard from city officials that it would take around $50 million to make real progress on that. We have an unfunded pension liability, a gap of about $1 billion for the city and schools combined. This counts as debt, right alongside the debt that the council is looking to take on for the sports center. For any project, we should analyze whether we will make sufficient return on the investment to make it worth spending money there rather than closing some of our debts. Here, not only are we not using our money to pay down our debt, but we're taking on a whole lot more debt to pay for the project, making it difficult for future projects to compete with the option of paying down the debt instead. Just because it comes from the TIP fund doesn't mean that it's immune to this effect. In fact, it further leverages the TIP fund and its borrowing ability, meaning it makes it more difficult to justify future development projects. So since we can't make an unlimited number of bets, essentially, we want to make sure that we're making the smartest ones. If we want this Virginia Beach to be an affordable place to live, and we want to continue to be so into the future, we have to avoid a situation where our property taxes end up pricing people on fixed incomes out of their homes. Failing to address the issue of debt in every part of our city government makes it harder to do this, harder to avoid doing this as the years go by. And there's another problem that no one seems to want to talk about, and that's that no one seems to know what people who live in the low-income housing in that area will go once they're displaced. Not just in the actual construction site itself, but in the surrounding area where property will become more expensive and some will be used for more commercial developments. Virginia Beach is hurting for low-income housing options. The VBCDC is in need of funding to help provide such options, yet another thing that we should consider a more important place for our money than a sports center. We need options and a plan for where residents of the area's low-income housing will go, not just in the construction site itself, but also the surrounding areas. We need to know what we're going to do about these things before we move forward. With so many costs in front of us and so much doubt as to the profitability of this project now that the cost has tripled, it's time to put the brakes on the project, not to just plow forward. Thank you.
Holly Martier, and then Jeff Richardson.
Right now, I should have, but I think this city is bankrupting me. My mortgage just went up, the tax went up, my insurance is going up. I could barely afford that. I don't want anything in here that is going to raise the taxes anymore. I think actually do what the citizens need. When it snows, I mean, everyone says it's a blizzard. It's really not. I'm from Jersey. Okay, I can handle the snow. I can drive in the snow. But a lot of people can't, and I think that it's more important to get the trucks and the materials we need, like salt. Sand doesn't do much. My car, I was on 264 in Virginia Beach and Indian River, and my car got totaled, pretty much totaled, because it was not plowed. So I think the money should go to what the citizens need and not a sportsplex, because there could be more crime. There's a lot of crime down at the oceanfront too. And I barely go there. I live not far from here, so I'm there as little as possible. I only go when my son wants to go to the beach or something, because he's a teenager. But I'm just sick of the corruption, because everything, the taxes go up, the water bill is higher than any other city here. And I can't even pay that. I just had to get assistance for the water bill, because they keep charging me more and more. And it's only one person in my house, and I'm barely home, and I barely take the garbage out because I don't eat much. Look at me. So I think raising taxes would be, the cost of it's ridiculous. And it keeps going up and up, and we don't want a chance, hurting I don't want to go in foreclosure, because I can't afford my house as it is. I'm working part-time right now. I'm looking for another job, and it's just very hard here. But I'm not going to work at a sportsplex because I do accounting. So I'm working for a wonderful company, amazing company right now, and they're trying to get me more hours. But the point is, I don't want to have to pay any more taxes because it just went up already. So I'm just sick of the, everything I make is basically going to mortgage and Virginia Beach. And I don't have anything for me, really. And I just don't think it's fair to the citizens of Virginia Beach for the taxes to go up again. I just think it's very unfair. And, I like sports, but I'll probably avoid going there because, it's taking my money, my tax money. I won't be able to go there because I have no money as it is. So, I am looking for another job. And I also want to thank John Moss for being on Facebook, and he responded to me. I appreciate that. And a lot of people were saying no on Facebook. I see only 2 people out of 100 or something said yes for the sportsplex. Everybody else said no. So, I really hope that you think about it before you do anything, because the price is ridiculous. It's, costs way too much, and I think we should do what the citizens need. Like when it does snow, I know it's not as much as Jersey, but you need to be able to clear the roads, especially like Indian River, 264, make sure that's safe for the citizens. And the safety and the crimes that go on down at the beach, there could be more if the sportsplex is there. Thank you.
Jeff Richardson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Jeff Richardson. I have the honor this year of being the chair of the Virginia Beach Division of the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for allowing me to talk with you guys. Much of what I was going to say tonight has already been said. I may be the last of the speakers, so I just want to briefly say that the Chamber is in support of this sports center. Thank you.
That's all the speakers I have signed up.
Are there any persons here who didn't have a chance to sign up who would like to come up and speak at this time? Come forward, sir. Please identify yourself and give your address and phone numbers.
My name is Gary Hubbard. I'm a sole proprietor. I'm a commercial and residential construction contractor. I live in Magic Hollow. My phone number is 757-472-7994. What I'd like to talk about, well, a little bit, in the sports arena, there's a lot of causations, but that's not the determinants, where the other cities have it. What I'd like to know about the sports center is if there's addendums issued, what does the square foot cost, what does the overhead cost, and what is the profit cost? But those are causations for you gentlemen to understand. What I'd like to talk about is the flood control. Not stopping the flood. We can control floods, but we cannot stop it. Only God can do that. What we need to do is make that first step. If we do not do that with our canals, ditches, holding ponds, lakes, we're just going to be doing the same thing over and over and over again. And I hate abbreviations for the CIP and TIP. My Navy days, I hated it then also. But yes, I'm not against development, and I'm looking forward to the city in the 21st century. We've got to make sure that we have sane development. We've got to make sure we have flood controls that we can control without flooding our cities. The city of Virginia Beach, from Atlantic to Pacific, yes, it floods down there. My Magic Hollow floods. So we've got to actually look at the seriousness of climate change and sea level rise, because these things are coming. Our infrastructure is old. Concrete and steel doesn't last forever. So we've got to actually make the change. We've got to take the first step to actually control this flood or the floodings that's coming. We've got to make sure whatever construction projects that we do, that they stand alone on their own merit. I've seen where a lot of people would like to go ahead and have a sports arena so they don't have to go to Hampton. But the other venues, we have to work within our cities, sister cities. To have a sports arena would be a feather in our cap. I agree. But we've got to look at the construction cost and see if we can't come to a reasonable consideration for that. And gentlemen, I appreciate your service, and that's about it. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers who would like to speak on this subject? If not, we'll move to the next subject. I'm sorry. Mr. Earn, would you like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, just some clarification. Are we going to do another hearing on the comprehensive agreement, or was that the hearing for both of the items under number 10?
For both.
Was that for both? Okay.
I would like to divide the question.
You want to divide the question?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Well, then I'll make the first motion first, Mr. Mayor. Before I do that, I do want to acknowledge someone who is not here with us anymore, and that's Jim Ricketts, who is in charge of our Convention and Visitors Bureau. And I think it was about 5 years ago that I met with him and Nancy Hellman, and we talked about, if we were going to invest in sports tourism, which we were doing very well, what would be the smart investments, and give us some science to guide what that development would be. And Nancy, if you'll stand up, I'm going to embarrass you just real quickly. Nancy, for those of you who don't know, is in charge of our sports marketing and does an incredible job, not just in terms of the sales, but in terms of welcoming the groups to Virginia Beach and making sure they have a wonderful experience. And absent her and her team's efforts, we wouldn't have realized this incredible market that benefits our entire city. So, Nancy, I'd like to thank you for all of your efforts. I would like to give this council and those at home a sense that this has not been something that's just come up quickly. It is something that we have looked at over a number of years with a recognition that we do want to move to a year-round resort, and that we have had really great success with our sports marketing efforts. And it's a place that people want to come, and it's a place that they want to come. If they've got to go see their kids play, they want to come to a fun place when they're doing that, and Virginia Beach certainly fits that bill. And so after an awful lot of analysis about what should we do, should we build more baseball fields, softball fields, or rectangular fields, it's not really that surprising that the answer is that we should be building indoor facilities that weatherproofs our industry and makes it so that we know that when people come to Virginia Beach, we're actually going to be able to hold their event. We had an event here just this past January during the blizzard of fencers that came from all over the place, and they still came even during the blizzard, and that's how committed people are when they're coming to participate in the sport. And so with that in mind, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to, and I'll be happy to put the motions in separately, but to make the first motion, and that is to transfer the $3.5 million from the Dome Site Entertainment Venue CIP to Central Beach and Convention District Parking CIP, with the recognition that this is not defunding either of those. It is just changing the year of execution so that we can actually get going. Really, the need for this, just so the public is aware, is that we need to make sure that when we start to build the Sportsplex, that we have enough parking to satisfy our current convention center. And so we need to go ahead and very quickly build that surface parking so that we'll have that opportunity. So with that in mind, Mr. Mayor, I would like to make that motion.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Moss.
This is a discussion I've had before in the informal session, but when we did the reconciliation budget, when we decided to have no tax increase and solve vertical pay compression and make adjustments, we made adjustments to the CIP, and this was one of these adjustments by $3 million, and it was on the sheet. But no time during the discussion that we had on the reconciliation budget or at subsequent conversations on it did the city manager or staff reveal that they materially would still need the $3 million 2 months later. You would think that when you had a reconciliation budget and someone told you it was $7 million, that they found some requirement offset because they put the $3 million somewhere else. Now we've learned several weeks ago that in fact, no, the requirement never got changed. And now that we're having it, we need the $3 million back. So my issue here is I think that we were obligated to be told and had a duty to be told at the time we adopted the budget that in fact, we didn't materially reduce the requirement by $3 million. We just pushed it off until after we adopted the budget, which was about 2 months ago, and now we have to put the money back. Now, we were borrowing the money from another account that ultimately downstream has to be repaid. So it really is a net increase over what we adopted. Now, is it legitimate that the costs are there? Yes. Is it the kind of full disclosure that you think you would receive during a budget process? No, it is not. And I think the public just needs to know. I've certainly got smarter about more questions to ask, because if you don't ask, you don't get told. But this isn't how we should be budgeting 2 months after we adopt the budget. We've got to move $3 million. This is not good management. But I am going to support the transfer because it's a real cost. That people need to know.
All right, any further comments? If not, the vote's open on the first motion.
By a vote of 10-0, you have approved the ordinance to transfer the money from the Dome Site CIP.
All right, now, Mr. Hearn, would you like to make the second motion?
I would, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we authorize the city manager to execute the comprehensive agreement for the sports complex.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Mr. Moss.
When this field house, now called the Sports Center, started out as a $40 million facility some months ago, as the gentleman recounted, I had my concerns as to the appropriateness as to its priority relative to the amount of flooding that we have, and I'll talk about this more in detail, and also how much of the city's available borrowing capacity it takes, which is an opportunity cost, which means that's $68 million worth of flooding projects we can't do. And as much as I know the kids would like to be here versus Hampton, I think the people who fear being flooded in their homes and having water in their house when it rains would rather we be going to Hampton than they have water in their house. Now, can we have both? Maybe we can, but we aren't being given those kind of choices, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But my interaction with the public since the price has gone up has been quite a different amount of feedback. One, for one of the reasons mentioned, we really don't have any real analytical studies, and even Victus was not independently validated, that talks to the $68 million. But my concern is more about the debt capacity. When my colleagues, Councilman Dyer and Councilman Abbott, we put together the alternative budget, we were concerned about the amount of debt this project would consume. And we proposed that not only would we use $20 million of cash to reduce the amount of borrowing by deferring the pier project, but also to finance this thing over 10 years, vice 20, since it was going to be this very profitable activity. Therefore, we would be restoring the debt capacity available for flooding at a much faster pace. We also proposed a significant amount of money to go into flooding, but that, as we know, didn't happen, and we had a compromise, and we moved forward. But we did say at the time that while we were voting for the CIP, there were certain projects that we didn't concur with, and it wasn't so much the sports center in principle, but the manner in which it was being financed. We need to put more cash down and finance it over a shorter period of time. Because what's happening is the per capita debt of this project is $148 a person. It's consuming about 25% of our available per capita debt between our debt policy of $3,000 and our current debt level. So we need to be thinking about that because, one, we have a lot of people still exposed to flooding risk, and we're being told we don't have, if we did what we wanted to do, it would be injurious to the city's credit rating. I sometimes question that, but nonetheless, we have to think about our most critical resource is our line of credit that we can use, and I think less of it should be going into this facility. I got an interesting, gentleman about Facebook, but several people made comments to this effect, and this was from Jim Johnson. He said, I support the Sports Center, but the Sports Center, we should first address the flooding project and be more aggressive on flooding. I wish tonight someone was saying, I want to pledge all the revenues that go to the general fund would go to financing flooding. If we believe this thing's going to produce all this revenue, we should be willing to commit all that revenue to dealing with flooding projects. At least the residents will be getting a true dividend. But until we have a more aggressive plan and investment strategy for flooding, people have a hard time dealing with the optic and our choice of priorities that we can accelerate this thing, move this up on the agenda, find the $68 million worth of debt we're willing to allocate to this, but it takes 15 years to address the flooding in their neighborhood. It takes 12 more years to clean out their ditches and 45 more years to do their lakes. That is something that undermines the confidence in the kind of priority choices we make. I think we can have both, and I wish we were voting on both tonight, because I think that would bring us together as a community. Instead, it's like, nope, you can wait, but this is more important. This is not the way we should be doing business. Now, in my humble judgment, and it's just mine, I pass no judgment on my peers. They work for you just like I do, and that's your job to judge all of us, not mine. But in my humble judgment, we are misaligned on our priorities. As important as this facility could be to a lot of people, it is not more important than the public citizens whose homes are at risk from flooding. And if we're trying to build broad-based public support for projects, we have to show that we care first and foremost of those who are most at risk. And our most affordable housing is in some of those neighborhoods that's most at risk. And I just think that it's an unfortunate choice that we're being asked to be made, but if someone had to ask me, is it more important to take care of the citizens in our community and address flooding first, and then come back and talk about a sports center, or talk about them at the same time? Those are the kind of choices we're making. But we are sending the wrong strategic message to our community, in my humble opinion. Thank you very much.
Any more comments? Mr. Moss? Mr. Dyer?
You know, there's a lot of truth to what Mr. Moss said, and we do face considerable challenges going forward. But, you know, with due respect, I think we have to be proactive. We as a council, as in a community, have to be more proactive about creating new wealth, new revenue sources to relieve the burdens on the individual taxpayer. And this is just an opportunity, but we have to create other opportunities to bring money into the city coffers that will not only relieve the burden on the taxpayer, but also pay for those necessary flood projects and our public safety and everything going forward. And I think we should commit to a better strategy of how to do these type of projects, but we must commit to thinking outside the box to create these new opportunities. And I think by being proactive with business and encouraging more business and new business and unique businesses, it will ultimately come to benefit and be proactive to the citizens of our city and have a win-win situation. And that's why I'm going to be supporting this project. Thank you.
Mr. Ern?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd hate for the folks at home to think that by supporting an industry and using funds that are collected through a voluntary tax on the people that use that industry, that by doing that, we are ignoring the other needs of the citizens. And I think that everyone needs to know that this council, and I think all 10 of us, take all of those considerations very seriously. It is something that we are briefed on and demand from our staff to be kept abreast of exactly all of the efforts that we are to address flooding and sea level rise throughout our city. We are taking all of the projects that we can do quickly, and we are addressing them as fast as we can to get immediate relief. We also understand that flooding issues are complex, and we have two responsibilities. They're complex and they're expensive, regardless. And we have to go and we have to, first off, make sure we're using science to design and implement those. There is nothing worse that this council can do, and that is, the worst thing we can do is we could say, we're going to respond immediately and mess it up and spend a lot of money that doesn't correct the problem. But a worse sin that this council could commit was to respond immediately and create something that corrects a problem for one neighborhood, but creates a problem for another. So it's going to take time in order to come up with these solutions. But we need to understand that in order to come up with the money to get these solutions, we have to continue to invest in the industries that we have shown to actually produce monies and revenues for our city. And so I think that approval of this does exactly that. We are creating future cash streams that we are going to be able to use to fund the serious needs of all of our citizens. And so, again, Mr. Mayor, I'm proud to make that motion.
All right, you're making a motion to approve.
Yes, I already made it.
Seconded.
All right, Mr. Mullen?
I never suggested that we were using money. What I said was we are allocating debt capacity being paid by TIP funds, and debt capacity, available credit, is our most scarce capital resource because we are already at 9% of our debt service relative to our operating budget, which is 1% below our 10% threshold for controls with our bond ratings. I'm referring to how we allocate our available debt, and there is an opportunity cost. And furthermore, you may recall, and it's been Dr. Cook, who is the Professor Emeritus, former president of ODU, said the biggest thing, we talked about that, to drive up wages was not investments in entertainment venues, but investments in developing a skilled workforce. That was his conclusion. I'm not arguing if you want to take and pay cash from all the resort revenues from TIP and for TAP and pay cash for this facility, I'd be the first one voting yes. I'm saying that is allocating debt, which is our most scarce resource, should first and foremost going to flooding projects. And there's no high science about dredging out 4 feet of muck out of ditches when we're 12 years behind. That's $20 million. And there's no big science to dredging out the lakes that we're 50 years behind on in terms of the cycle. So and to say that we don't have immediate ability to deploy cash for fundamental things that improve drainage is a misrepresentation. Civil engineering's been around time of the Romans, and ditch digging about farmers, that's not high science. We did it in Prince Sam Plaza. Look what we did there to improve. Didn't take a big engineering project. There are things we can do today that we are not doing.
Anybody else before we vote? If not, the vote is open.
By a vote of 8-2, you have passed the resolution.
Okay, we will now go to planning item J2.
J3.
J, J3, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
sir.
J3, which is the application of John S. and Karen S. Waller for a conditional change of zoning from AG1 and AG2 agricultural district to conditional R10 residential at 2313 Tree Song Trail, Princess Anne District.
Eddie Burdon? We want to wait till,
Just a minute.
yes, sir.
Give Eddie a few more billing minutes.
Eddie Burdon?
Mr. Burdon.
Thank you, Mayor Jones, Vice Mayor Wood, esteemed members of the City Council. For the record, Eddie Burdon, Virginia Beach Attorney, representing John and Karen Waller. This is an application involving a 10.5-acre piece of property at Painters Lane and Tree Song Trail. It is in the Prince Anne District and is not in the transition area. It is in a portion of the Prince Anne District that is residential. The property is zoned agriculture and really doesn't have an agricultural use that can be made of it. The property is along Tree Song Trail. Property's on Tree Song Trail. It is 10.5 acres. On the opposite side of Tree Song Trail, there are 9 homes that were built many years ago. My clients have owned this property where they reside for 37 years. These 9 homes were created on a subdivision of 4 acres of property, and as the staff's evaluation of this application says, residential developments in the surrounding area have been constructed with densities between 2.25 and 3.5 units per the acre. This is a request for 10 units on 10.5 acres, which is less than 1 unit per acre. These lots, the 9 that are on Tree Song Trail, which there are 9 on the other side of Tree Song Trail, excuse me, the zoning requested is R10, which allows the lots to have 80 feet of frontage, but these are all 15,000 square foot lots. This lot is a 14,500 square foot lot. The proffers include all of the property. So the proffered plan includes all 10.5 acres. No one can come in later and try to subdivide this piece of property. This is where the BMP will be, and my client's home is on this piece of property as well. This avoids having to extend the road in any way. It will be widened. There to be a 10-foot dedication. I'm not sure there's actually any widening that'll take place, but that's where the utilities will go. The proffers include the designs of the homes. There are pictures, and you have them. And most importantly, or very importantly, all the exterior surfaces of these homes are either brick, stone, or hardy plank cement fiberboard. No vinyl. The homes on the opposite side of the road are very nice homes, not in any way derogatory, but many, if not most of them, have vinyl to one degree or another on them, but yeah, nice homes. But these homes will in no way, shape, manner, or form do anything other than increase the value of the homes on the street. They will do nothing to in any way decrease it. This application has taken a good while to get here because of the requirements for stormwater and the studying that had to be done. June Barrett McDaniels was hired. She's an expert in these areas, and this has been reviewed and approved under the preliminary stormwater analysis by city staff, which took quite a good number of time, a good amount of time. Application is recommended for approval by your staff, unanimously by your planning commission, and my clients have met with the neighbors many months ago to go over the plan, so I understand there's some folks here that wish to speak against it. Be happy to answer any questions anybody may have and would appreciate the opportunity to reply.
Questions for Mr. Burdon?
You wouldn't happen to know where in relation to this property the old Painter's Lane was?
Well, actually, Painter's Lane is right out here. This is Painter's. Now, this is Painter's Lane as it is today.
Right, the original. Well, I just remember a long time ago a property that was actually zoned residential that came in and became zoned agriculture because they wanted horses. Is this the one?
You have an excellent memory. You absolutely do.
See, I don't forget anything.
Yeah, This property,
was zoned residential.
many, many, many years ago,
I think one of the first ones I voted on.
and Mr. Waller and his wife were part of the application. It was rezoned from residential to agriculture. 3 6-acre lots were created for just that purpose. And one of them, not the Wallers, but one of the owners of this 6-acre parcel had some financial issues and decided to sell to a developer. The Wallers bought 2 acres of their property, which is incorporated in the 10.5, and the other 4 are what is now the west side of Tree Song Trail. But that, you're 100% right, this was it was zoned residential, it was downzoned to 3 6-acre agricultural parcels, and the Wallers purchased the 6 acres in the middle. They've subsequently, when this person had financial issues and sold to a developer, they bought this, and they bought this off of previous owner of the property to the east. But you are spot on in your recollection.
Do you have a question, Mr.?
I did, not relative to the property, but the process, about how much additional time, you can tell me later another place, did the stormwater assessment add to your process? And if you want to tell me offline later, that's fine, but it's a question I have, you can answer it later.
I'll be happy to answer it. I'll be happy to answer it later. But
Super. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
James Smith. And after Mr. Smith will be Don Chapman.
Good evening, everybody. My name is James Smith, and I live at 2316 Tree Song Trail, directly across from where the houses that the Wallers want to put in. Just a little quick history. 20-plus years ago, the Wallers approached the city council to have the lot sizes increased to 100-foot frontages. And they won at that time, the contractor had to remove 2 houses per street to accommodate the lot frontages. Today, Mr. Waller wants to do exactly what he opposed 20 years ago by putting 80-foot frontages on our houses. I just feel that that's going to hurt my property value. Jamming them in like Ocean Lakes or any other subdivision, we're a little bit unique. Nice lot frontages spread out, all ranches, and across the street, it's going to be all 2-story crammed-in houses. So, thank you for your time.
Don Chapman.
Hello, my name is Dawn Chapman. I live at 2324 Tree Song Trail. My husband, Kevin, my daughter, Brian, and I moved in 21 years ago. We were the first to move in on Tree Song Trail in the new home community. And it's a very tight-knit little community of 16 homes. We help each other. When in times of need, we wave to each other on the street. We have celebrations, annual celebrations, block parties, progressive dinners, all kinds of celebrations together where we all show up Christmas caroling. We've been very fortunate to have good friends in a lovely neighborhood full of beauty, woods across the street, full of nature and wildlife, some not always very welcome. We have 14 of the 16 homes were built by Gary Caruana, and I don't know if you're familiar with Gary Caruana, but he's famous for his ranch homes. Now we do have, aside from the Wallers, we have 2 2-story homes, and Gary built one of those 2-story homes, and the other was built in the cul-de-sac by another builder. But all of the other homes are 1-story Caruana ranches. What many of us would like to see is that we keep the neighborhood in the same ambiance and style that is present. The proposed lots of the Wallers are not wide enough to build 1-story homes or the ranches in the same style as what we're used to. The lots are only wide enough for 2-story homes. We would like to see the lots wider. Ours are all 100-foot wide right now. So we'd like to keep the neighborhood in the same character, and we think that we would maintain our home values with wider lots and in the same style. So we would give this some consideration. Thank you.
That's all the speakers have signed up, sir.
Are there any speakers who have not signed up who would like to speak at this time?
God bless you. Thank you.
Mr. Burdine?
First of all, there are the same number of lots on this side of the road as on the other side of the road. There are 9. There's a 10th lot on Painter's Lane, but there are 9 on 9. These lots are the same square footage, they're just 80 feet wide instead of 100, and the corner lot is obviously far wider than that. There's no argument that I think anyone would conceive of that these are going to devalue the homes across the street. And my second job was working for Gary Caruana back when I was about 18 years old. He was a great guy. But anyway, I don't think there's any real argument that this is going to degrade anyone's property values, and the option of extending the road and increasing the amount of impervious surface, given that what we're all talking about a lot these days, we just talked about earlier, it just didn't make sense to my clients. They didn't want to extend the road in order for the lots to be wider when they can have the same square footage as the lots across the street, and we know the houses are going to be highest of quality houses. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question.
Any question for Mr.
I just have one.
Mr. Moss?
What's the setback from the street? Since the lots are longer, you're going to have them set further back from the street?
Well, the zoning ordinance setback is 30 feet, and that would be the same on either side of the street.
But
the likelihood would be that's the case. Now, you can have a ranch home, but the lady who spoke, if you did a ranch home, it would be.
I wasn't pushing for that piece. My question is because the lots are longer, would allow you to have a bigger setback from the street.
Absolutely would
and-
permit that to happen.
Okay,
There's no doubt about that, but it has not been proffered that it would be a bigger setback because the setback is the same on the opposite side. Had it been, and I've done this before, where we have different setback, then we would have made it the same, but it's the same.
Like, it's a question I have for staff later, that's why I asked that.
All right.
Thank you.
Unfortunately,
Henley?
this was the first that I'd heard of their concerns. They weren't at the Planning Commission. That's why it always is helpful to go before. But in looking at this, and maybe the staff could help me out, the access to the existing home is going to be from the end of the cul-de-sac. Is that correct? And so the houses that are actually around the cul-de-sac, one of them at least, will be bordering on this much larger lot. So it's actually the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 houses that are along Tree Song that are maybe in question, but the depth of the lots and the size of the lots being the same, it seems to be fairly comparable. Do you have any analysis that you might make, Carolyn or Jimmy, and from what you've heard, as whether there's incompatibility here?
In our view, that while they are smaller lots, we believe that they are comparable. They may not be exactly the same, but they are compatible and they are comparable.
Well, there is the street does separate the lots, so it's not that they abut each other. They are separated by the street. So, you have a question?
I do. My question always goes back, as you get narrower lots and you put the driveways on there, there's less on-street parking by definition, just because of the driveways. What's the width of the street? And can you park cars on both sides of the current street and still drive down the center? I haven't actually been out there. I apologize for not driving out there and looking at it, but
50-foot right-of-way, 30 feet of asphalt.
I'm just trying to make sure. I didn't know when it was built. Is it a different standard because of the property? I'm just trying to confirm that they built the standard
Maybe
city
Mr.
street.
Burdine can answer your question.
Oh, sure. Anyone who knows. Knowledge is a great thing.
First of all, the street with the 10-foot dedication if it needs to be widened to 30 or 32 feet, it can be. The current width of the street, as far as the paved section of the street, I believe is 28 feet. The other, I'm sorry, I had a thought, but there was another question that was asked, and I had a thought, and it left me.
Well,
these lots are not, the lots are not, square footage-wise, not smaller. They're just narrower.
They're the same square footage wise.
Exactly. And the lot, the 7-acre lot that includes the BMP and my client's house, that's a conforming lot in terms of its lot frontage as well. And that's why I said there are the same number of lots front the street, 9 on each side, no difference. And there are actually only 8, if you can't, standard lots. This is the 9th lot, and there are 9 lots on the opposite side of the street. Now, they do wrap around most of the cul-de-sac, but there are 9 on this side, and there will be 9 on this side, which includes this one, which has the conforming frontage at the setback line.
well, this question isn't prejudicial to your application, but I'm assuming that when we did the drainage analysis, no one made the assumption that the street was being widened.
Oh, yeah.
Was that correct? We should know that answer.
Smart engineers over in the DSC, I'm not sure exactly which calculations they took into consideration, but it has been reviewed, and I know that this has been through quite the ringer as far as the.
Because the review had to determine that the drainage was going to be satisfactory.
I was going to talk to Don Astley, but this has been designed to handle a storm event that the houses on the opposite side of the street will have over a foot of water in them, and this will not. That's how, I mean, we're talking.
This drainage is going to go over.
No, because this has been designed under the sea level rise requirements.
I'm just asking all these questions because.
There is a huge BMP that's on this, that doesn't exist, it cannot affect the other. I'm just saying, there'd be so much rain that it wouldn't just be across the street, it would be up and down,
That's why I
Nemo
said it
Parkway.
wasn't with prejudice, I was just making sure I'd asked you due diligence.
That's why it's taken, a long time.
Well, in
Thank you
looking
very much.
at the other zoning maps, except for the portions that were apparently along Painter's Lane, everything over there is R7.5, and this would be R10, so we're really in compliance. Well, it's pretty tough to have someone who had R10 to start with and has allowed the area to have agricultural all this time, could not be able to go back to that original zoning. And I think it does pretty much conform to what the surrounding area is. And so my motion is going to be to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve. Any discussion on the motion? If not, the vote's open.
By a vote of 10-0, you've approved the application of the Wallers.
That concludes the printed agenda. Is there any unfinished business? Any new business? If not, I'll adjourn the formal session. We have open mic.
No.
We had open mic last week.
We did that last week. We're going home.
Mr. Teacher, can you get a synopsis?